Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm trying a different angle, one of these where I'm like looking up, because I have really squinty eyes. And if I'm looking at you from like the normal angle, doesn't it just make my eyes look like they're sleepy all the time? But if I look at you like this, where I have to open my eyes and look up, I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna be better. You tell me if you hate it. All right, today I'm coming to you with the Cozy Coffee Mug book tag. I was tagged by Library of a Mood Reader, and this tag was originally created by Literary Love 123. Now, before I get into the tag and show you my cozy mug and all of this, I have a little bit of mug philosophy for you all, because I have watched lots and lots, loads and tons and billions of videos where a girl is sitting there holding her cup and she never drinks from it. And it's always weirded me out. Like, why do you have a cup and you're not drinking from it? I don't sit here and drink while I'm talking to you because that would be awkward and messy. So if I have a cup of anything, it's usually just my water bottle, and I'll take sips of it and then edit them out. So the coffee mug thing has always weirded me out, but as I was doing this tag and I was forced to have my own mug in the video, I started to feel a bit like a hypocrite. Am I a hypocrite for having a mug in my video? Then I realized what the mug is really about. It's not about the fact that you cannot make a 30 or 20-minute video even without having a sip of your coffee, cocoa, or tea. It's really about the mood it creates, right? How you feel. If I have a hot drink here with me as I'm getting ready to make my video, I am telling myself that this is a cozy time, a relaxing time, a time for me. This is not a job that I have to slog through, something I need to rush through to get on to the next thing. This is a time for me to do something and talk about something that I love. It's a chance for me to connect with the people who watch my videos and all of the booktubers out there that I love. And it's an opportunity for me to have some introspection and just kind of chill for a second, right? And let all of the other things in my life that are responsibilities, and probably more important responsibilities than booktubing, but let all of them kind of go to the side for a second and just chill here on my channel with my other reading friends. And so that cup of hot drink represents that, right? It's the signal. You have the cup, it's time to chill out. And so therefore, I have a new perspective on videos with coffee mugs, and maybe I will be making more in the future. All right, I had to lower that a little bit because that was a little extreme. So I'm gonna show you my coffee mug. I'm not actually a coffee drinker unless it is a iced, blended, super sweetened and full of chocolate sort of coffee, and then I will love it. Otherwise, I drink tea or cocoa. This mug has cocoa in it. It is actually very heavy. It has a lot of cocoa, but it's also just a large mug as it is. But there's my cocoa. And this was given to me for my birthday by my daughter. She made me a really sweet, cozy basket full of all kinds of fun, cozy things, socks and chocolates and cocoa in the mug and books and all kinds of beautiful things. It was really sweet. She really understands cozy. So this mug was in there, and this is the mug that I am using and having here to represent this little snippet of my day that is just for me and my booktube channel. Alright, since some of the questions on this tag are similar to tags that I've recently done, I challenged myself to give answers to these questions with books that I have never talked about on the channel before. I think for the most part I did pretty well with that. There might be one or two that you've heard me talk about, but for the most part I think I got new ones on here. So, number 1, share your favorite women authors. All right, so one that is on my list, pretty far down the list, but again, I've talked about a lot of these authors ad nauseum. This is an author originally named Eleanor Alice Burford. Are you familiar with Eleanor Alice Burford? Maybe. You probably are, but maybe not under that name. She was a prolific British authoress. She wrote over 200 books under various pseudonyms. She wrote several books a year across different genres. She sold over 100 million copies of her books, and many of them are still requested daily at libraries and are highly collectible, some of them here in the US at least. You may know her as Philippa Carr, which is actually really funny when you say that, Philippa Carr, or Jean Plaidy, or Victoria Holt. Some of her lesser known pseudonyms: Eleanor Burford, Elber Ford, Kathleen Kello, Anna Percival, and Ella Alice Tate. So her three popular pseudonyms here in the US, Jean Plaidy, Philippa Carr, and Victoria Holt, especially Victoria Holt. In fact, for a long time, people thought that Victoria Holt was a pseudonym for Daphne du Maurier. That's how well those books were written, as well as how closely they modeled some of the things that Daphne du Maurier wrote about as well. It's said that in the 1960s, one of her books, Mistress of Melon, single-handedly revived the Gothic romance fiction genre, which is still thriving today. I think she's fascinating. My mom has several of her original copies printed here in the US of book club editions from the 60s, maybe early 70s, but probably mostly the 1960s, with really neat paper covers on them still. And she has those, and I steal them from time to time and go on a big Gothic reading spree. I remember my mom reading Philippa Carr and Victoria Holt repeatedly during my childhood, and so I just think that she is a really amazing and fascinating author. I'm very curious if there is a biography out there. Some of you, especially who live in the UK, if you know of a good biography of this author, please let me know. I would love to read one. I think she's a really amazing woman. And I'm also curious, like, at what age she started writing, because if she wrote over 200 novels, several per year, good novels, good writing, and interesting stuff. A lot of it, like especially her Jean Plaidy's, are historical things. She wrote a lot about the kings and queens of England. And I started reading those years ago and did not even realize that it was the same author that my mother had been reading, just under a different name. So anyway, let me know if you know of a good biography of Eleanor Alice Burford, aka all those other things. All right, number 2 is share your favorite fictional women characters. I could think of 2 just off the top of my head that I hadn't talked about yet. Well, I think I have talked about Daisy Miller a little bit, but probably not in detail. So I really admire Daisy Miller. Henry James wrote a fictional story called Daisy Miller. It's a short story. I read it in an evening over Thanksgiving weekend last year, and I liked it. So she is an American girl, socialite, I guess, and she was traveling in Europe, and she had a reputation. Everybody thought she was a runaround. Everybody thought that she was, with a different man every night or whatever. They had a lot of, they spread a lot of rumors about her. And it was the women that would spread these rumors, right? The guys were just like, well, she's nice. And like, you never heard a man spreading a rumor about Daisy Miller. It was always the women. And so throughout the story, you're trying to figure out her character, I guess, or the people in the book anyway, are trying to figure out her character, and they're condemning her for just living her life and having fun. And it's just really is about her different social experiences. And I read something after I finished it. I can't even remember what sparked me to look this up, but I found where people really had a hard time with this book and with this ending, with this character, and just with the whole thing during the time, after it was published. And someone even went so far to write to Henry James, and they're like, what is the character of Daisy Miller? Is she this, skanky runaround, or is she an innocent young girl? Like, tell us, what did you mean to do? And he basically said, no, he never had any intention of her being anything other than an authentic American socialite girl who just enjoyed life and wanted to take it all in as much as she could. One of the things I really loved about Daisy Miller is that it kind of confirms some of my own suspicions about what we believe about the Victorians, on how they were stuffy and they expected so much of their women, and they oppressed their women, and just held them back from so many things that they could go and be, but it wasn't socially acceptable. And many of the time, that whole mentality gets blamed on the men stifling them. But in this story, like in many other stories that I've come across, it's not the men stifling them, it's the women. It was the women who were stifling Daisy Miller. It was the women who were gossiping about her. It was the women who were expecting her to be something that was their own, their own box for her to live in. And I think a lot of that is just because they didn't have the guts that she had to just go live their lives. And much of that is what I see when I read Victorian literature. I don't see the men oppressing the women. I see the women continuously putting forth this list of, qualities and characteristics that makes a real proper, socially acceptable woman. And then a woman feeling pressured to live up to that. So there you go, social commentary on Daisy Miller. Another character that I really like from literature is a girl named Crow. She is in a story that I read a few years ago. It's a children's book. It's called Beyond the Bright Sea, and if I remember correctly, this young girl, Crow, is being raised by someone who's not family, but who maybe found her as a child, as a baby, and this man is raising her. And I think they're on islands off the coast of New York, kind of in a transition time. In this story, she realizes that she is not living with her actual parents, and so she wants to search them out. But the cool thing about this story is that she's not looking to find her identity. Like, she already knows who she is. She already has a strong identity. She just is curious about this family. I don't remember her ever actually finding them or meeting them. But it didn't matter because she already knew who she was. I just thought that was a really good, strong story for young girls. Not relying on someone else to define you, that kind of thing. All right, number 3 is share your favorite Gothic book or story. So one I thought of was The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goudge. It's kind of a low fantasy children's story. I think it was published in like the 1940s, 1946 maybe. And it just tells the story of a young girl, and she goes to a castle, and there's mystery, and there's a white horse. And it's just a sweet fantasy sort of story, but it's takes place in an old house, and there's an old lady, and there's a family secret, and all these things. And it was made into a movie called The Secret of Moonacre. It's my oldest daughter's favorite story, and I'm trying to remember if we found out about the book first and then we found the movie, or vice versa. But the movie is very different from the book, so you can do them interchangeably and get 2 different stories. I think I'm about due to read that again because it's been a long time, and I do love that story. All right, number 4, name your auto-buy authors. Who do you buy as soon as they come out with something new? And I don't know. The only one I can think of is Kate Morton. I'm always looking for something new from Kate Morton. But the problem there is I don't read a whole lot of like contemporary new release sort of stuff. I'm getting better about it, but I usually read stuff that is a lot older and a lot of nonfiction. So I guess a nonfiction guy would be Peter Ackroyd. I tend to pick up anything I find from him. Maybe Alison Weir. I've been trying to collect her different stories about like the Tudors and stuff. But as far as somebody who is always got stuff coming out regularly right now, I can't say that I can think of one. It used to be Beverly Lewis. She writes Amish fiction, and she would come out with a book every year, if not a couple of books a year. And I did really enjoy those in my younger years, in my 20s and 30s. I had the entire collection, every one of them. My husband would buy it as soon as it came out and bring it home to me because he knew how much I loved those. And I did love them, but I think that I don't read those so much anymore. And it's a combination of me sort of growing out of them and the author. She's, getting very old, and I think that the quality of her writing has gone down just with her age, and maybe running out of ideas, I'm not sure. And I mean, no disrespect there, I just think that's just the truth of it. It seems that they're just not as good as they used to be, but part of that just could be me requiring something a little more in depth, right? All right, next question is, tell about a book that makes you feel nostalgic. So I have a collection of 3 books here on my shelf. I think one of them may be stolen, but it's only stolen from my mom, so that's okay. But when I was a kid, one of the favorite parts of my mom's bookshelf looked like this. She had these 3 books just like this, and maybe a couple more that I don't actually have with the same sorts of covers from the same series. But I loved looking at those covers. So in my mid-grade school years, my mom gifted me with one of her copies of Gone with the Wind. It turned out she had a couple. I think one of them might actually have been my grandmother's. She passed away when I was 7. But I think mom still has 2, so I'm not really sure. Anyway, I got this one and my mom wrote me a note in the front of it and just a dedication. But this book has been on my bookshelf my entire childhood, and I've never read it. I'm sorry, Mom. It's kind of a, it might even be on the level of a sin in our family to have not read Gone with the Wind. Maybe I'll make it my March of the Mammoths book. This edition is about 730 pages, which comes a little shy of the March of the Mammoths goal, but I think it'll be okay. So I am tentatively thinking maybe about reading this during March for March of the Mammoths. But anyway, so Gone with the Wind, and then Forever Amber, which at the time when I was a kid, my mom would say this was her favorite book, and she'd always tell me what a beautiful story it was. This one she gave to me in I'm looking, there's stuff in my, I just found a card from my graduation from one of my aunts from 1997, just stuck in here, so interesting. Anyway, this one, she had told me when I was younger that this was one of her favorite stories ever, but then later on in life she told me that she actually didn't want me to read it because of its content. So I've not read Forever Amber, not because mom told me not to, as much as because I heard another booktuber talk about it, and they were just frustrated with Amber and how she never seemed to learn her lessons. So I don't know, I may read this one of these days, but it's about that same size as Gone with the Wind, and I don't know if I can put myself through 2 of these in March. But I hear I've written my name as a kid. I really beat it up. But anyway, this one makes me feel nostalgic. And then this is the one I think I stole. So this is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which is one of my favorite stories. And it doesn't actually have a dedication to me on the inside like these other 2 do. The other 2 have my mom's name and then to Sarah from mom or something similar. This one has my mom's name and the 2 times that she reread it, and that's it. So mom, if you are looking for your copy of Rebecca, here it is, but you're gonna have to come and get it. We live 1,800 miles apart, so anyway, those books make me feel nostalgic. Just the covers of them, the artwork on them. I think they're from like Doubleday Book Club from I don't know how long ago, but I love them, and they have a special place on my bookshelf. This bookshelf is kind of like my nostalgia, old books and just like childhood favorites books, and at the very bottom of this shelf is where I have those, a few other things. All right, and then number 6 is share a book you enjoyed that is outside of your comfort zone or typical genre. So I was thinking of The 39 Steps by John Buchan from 1915. This is a short, sort of action-packed book about a guy who's on the run. He is aware of a crime, and some various things take place in which he could be implicated in the crime, and not seeing a way out of it, he just goes on the run. And he's all over like Scotland and maybe parts of England as well. I can't remember if he's just in Scotland or both, but anyway, he's on the run, and various, things happen that bring some danger into the situation. Or ultimately, of course, it all ends well and everything's fine. but it is a really fun story. But it's kind of like a guy story, and it's a turn of the century guy story. And, you know, I mean, now it's an everybody story, but at the time I don't think necessarily that it was probably written for everybody. And I don't tend to pick up, you know, action-packed adventures, but I think it was on the 1001 books to read before you die list, and I was like, well, that's skinny one, I'll get it. And then I ended up loving it and wanting to read more. I think there's actually a few more books that feature that character, and so I'm gonna look for those. I just was kind of reminded of that, and I was like, yeah, I want to look for that again. So that is it. Number 7 is just to tag some people, which I will do. I always try to tag new people. I just like search the booktube newbie tag videos and tag people off of those, and I get to know some new booktubers. But if you want to do this tag, feel free to do so. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.